I actually started off playing villain as my first pantomime. Then they asked me to do comic, and then through that I progressed to playing a dame. I think I was ready to play it then, because I'd worked with some super dames in the past, and it's all about learning.
And what's the kids' reaction to you? I mean, that must be fantastic.
They love it. You come on, you see their eyes light up. You have to play to them, you have to relate to them. You must in no way patronise them or make them look silly. You know, if you have them up on stage, you must always talk quietly to them, make them feel they're part of it, make them feel they're helping you.
Well, I find it hard to believe that I've just completed my 40th pantomime in just 33 years. What is even more incredulous is that before I entered the profession, I had very little experience of pantomime at all. Yes, I'd done a couple of village hall pantos in my early teens, but didn't take up the opportunity to see the panto greats at the Alexandra Theatre in Birmingham when I could have visited with my school. So I missed out on seeing Terry Scott, Arthur Askey, Alfred Marks, Jack Tripp, Billy Dainty, Leslie Crowther, Anna Carron, Dawson Chance, Anita Harris, to name but a few. So it befell that my fourth job in the British theatre was pantomime. But let's start at the very beginning and do a whistle-stop tour through all of those shows, which include adult pantos, summer season pantos and regular Christmas season. So there I was in 1992, fresh out of drama school in Birmingham and working for impresario Alexander Bridge, and the golden opportunity to play my first villain, Sheriff of Nottingham, in Robin Hood at Thameside Theatre Great in Essex. And what a great start, because this is where I believed my panto talents lay, in playing villains. A lovely season, albeit basic and very much following a format dictated by Alexander Bridge, who was directing and playing Dame, but it was that precious first panto credit, an excellent review in the stage, and my first on-stage stage fight. So that was how I believed things would pan out. But how wrong I was, as the following year, in the days when most jobs came through either the stage or PCR, I auditioned at the dear old CAA for Mark Andrews, who had recently taken over a company from the late Nelson Firth. And of all things, I was cast as comic. Now, I had no role models for comic, apart from a very wide Essex boy approach from Gray's the previous year, but one doesn't look a gift horse in the mouth. And so my idol Jack debuted at Middlesbrough Little Theatre in 1993. A baptism by fire, playing opposite Dame Ian Moore, who taught routines on the hoof, with no script, just a listen, learn and improvise approach. But what better teaching for all those classic routines? Reviews were good, and even though I wasn't the most accomplished comic, it was a good experience for the years to come. Ian and I repeated our mother-son, Dame and comic pairing at the Prince of Wales Theatre in Cannock the following year in Jack and the Beanstalk, with the classic Bruce and Norman decorating routine being slotted in. Unfortunately, the stage gave me a fairly damning review, which didn't do much for one's self-confidence so early in one's career. The following year I played the first inkling of a Dame role in a collection of folk tales under the title Arabian Nights at the Midland Arts Centre in Birmingham, playing a rather sadistic aunt who blinded her daughters in exchange for power and riches. Not exactly Mother Goose. Then, in 1998, the chance of a lifetime to work with my heroes Hinge and Brackett, the best female impersonators in the business, in Cinderella at the Devonshire Park Theatre in Eastbourne. And not only that, fate contrived that I should appear on stage with the late Patrick Fife, aka Dame Hilda, when Dr. Hinge was struck down with flu. I suppose that was the turning point for me, and just on the strength of a tape recording of my appearance as one of the evil sisters, a huge leap of faith was bestowed on me the following year, when the lead role of Mother Goose fell into my lap, care of John Nathan Turner at the Elgiva Theatre Chesham for their Millennium Pantomime. 15 costume changes, the only panto exclusively about a dame, and the local award put me firmly on the ladder to become an established dame. I couldn't have asked for a better start. The production was not without its difficulties, but in the grand scheme of things it was a small price to pay for such a star role, for which I will be eternally grateful. And the following year, when Chesham had started producing their own pantos, I was privileged to be in the first and very best, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and this remains one of the highlights of my Dame career. The show worked from the first day of rehearsals, the cast were a joy to work with, and the show was a total joy to play every performance. I shall always look back fondly on the halcyon days of the Chesham pantos. Following my success in Mother Goose, I maybe foolishly turned down a further year at Chesham to do Mother Goose at the Opera House in Wakefield for producer John Spillers. The chance to reprieve this iconic role was irresistible, but sadly an appalling script, including a Nazi villain, turned this charming tale into a protracted jumble. I received some savage reviews, when only 2 years before I had been hailed as a dame who stole the show in the same role. It just shows what poor material can do to one's performance and reputation. I was at a low after that production, and it took a wonderful company for whom I'd toured in the hit comedy Ladies' Night to firmly draw me back into the panto fold the following year. New Palm was, and always will be, close to my heart, because they were very much a family. Run by John Newman and Daphne Palmer, they produced good quality rep and touring productions, and ran the Civic Theatre Chelmsford for so many years, and their pantos really were good old-fashioned traditional family shows. Aladdin was the show in 2002, with many of the old stalwarts of New Palm, and, as Widow Twankey, I had the chance to write my own opening number and patter, indulge in even more outrageous costumes and effects, and basically let my hair down and enjoy myself, albeit for a long season. Flying carpet rides with a silent film behind us, decorating scenes, ghost gags with mummies, it was all there, and what a joy it was. Chelmsford pantos became yet another much-remembered time, and one that hasn't diminished with the passing of time. It wasn't without incident, with an onstage injury when poor Wishy-Washy was knocked out by a flying bar, and I ended up doing the ghost gag by myself as he recovered from concussion in the wings. But this show restored my confidence in spades. And then, to complete the hat-trick at Chesham, I was invited back for their final in-house panto in 2003, with Jack and the Beanstalk.
This is Mr. Rumelle here, getting ready before the show. So what do you normally do before a show then, David?
Normally takes me about 2 hours, and that's in today at 12 with an hour to go. First thing, come in, reset all the costumes. It takes about half an hour, including repairs as well, and start makeup about half an hour before vocal warm-up. So by the time we do that, put the nail varnish on, and once that's done, wire up for sound. As long as I can be ready 20 minutes before, I'm happy.
A reuniting of a lot of the cast from Goldilocks and Mother Goose, and sporting of some beautiful sets, costumes, routines and numbers. They were halcyon days in a theatre that knew me and I them. Building on the reputation I built up since 1999, in a way it was very sad that this was to be the last of the in-house shows that the Elgiva was to mount. But for me, it actually led to a source of work in later years, for which I am still eternally grateful. When the theatre put the panto up for tender, I notified my friends at New Palm, who secured the tender for many years, but I'm getting ahead of myself. 2004 proved a whirlwind of work, including my first adult panto. A local taxi driver had decided to reinvent the Brighton adult pantos, which had enjoyed great success in the 90s, and provided a vehicle for the talents of Brighton's erstwhile drag queens and cabaret acts. Unfortunately, said taxi driver and the writer-director he'd employed to also play Dame hadn't a clue about the traditions of panto, nor the concept of adult pantos. An adult panto should follow the same structure as a conventional one, with just an added layer of double entendre and carry-on style humour. Unfortunately, it became a huge ego trip for said taxi driver and writer-director Dame, each description of which I use very loosely. But it gave me the opportunity of returning to my first panto genre, that of villains, and I was able to indulge in the delights of playing Demon King in Mother Goose and sing a wonderful number given to me by writer-composer Richard Cates. So, why look a gift horse in the mouth? Incidentally, it was a busy time, as not only was I performing twice nightly in that show, but I was commuting to London every day whilst rehearsing for my West End debut in Ram the Horn Revisited. And then it was a return to dear old New Palm in December 2004 for Dick Whittington at the Civic Theatre Chelmsford again. An interesting production, actually performed on an old set for Robinson Crusoe, but it somehow fitted, even if the Sultan of Morocco was replaced by the Rainbow Warrior in a Cannibal Village set. But one couldn't help but applaud everything that was thrown at a New Palm panto, from a flying seahorse to the classic drill scene to a kitchen slosh scene, which was very much a staple of all New Palm pantos. It was also prudent to do the show, as the following year John and Daphne asked me to write Beauty and the Beast as a new subject for their theatre. And even though fate decreed I didn't do this version until 20 years later in the most unlikely of circumstances, it did me good to put my panto writing into gear. Adult panto number 2 followed in early 2005 with myself as Abanazar in Aladdin. I had in fact played an approximation of Abanazar in Arabian Nights 10 years previously, known simply as the Magician, but nothing beats Abanazar as a favourite panto villain, and one I'm glad to have had in my armoury. With a rewritten song from Blondel I performed at drama school. It was a pleasant enough run, and was to be the last adult panto before Phil Starr's untimely death later that year. 2005 was a whirlwind, as I was on the road for most of the year with spring and autumn tours of Ram the Horn Revisited, which sadly overlapped December. But whilst on the road I was writing Beauty and the Beast for New Palm, and even though I sadly couldn't appear in the Dame role I'd technically written for myself, John and Daphne very kindly gave me 2 rep jobs in early 2006 in Death Trap and Blithe Spirit, with a strong hint that they wanted me for their final panto they were to produce at the Chelmsford Civic Theatre. And then again, after completing Death Trap and Blithe Spirit, I was rehearsing the last ever outing for the hit comedy Ladies' Night, that we returned to Oldham Coliseum, where it had first started almost 20 years previously. But another panto villain beckoned in the form of a welcome return to the Sheriff of Nottingham, in Robin Hood in the Brighton adult panto in early 2006. This had undergone some radical cast changes following dear Phil Starr's death, and the role was played by dear David Raven, aka Icon Maisie Trelette. The cast also included Paul Lawrence Thomas, aka Cosmic, Miss Jason, Kitty Litter, and the amazingly talented Robert James. An interesting production, probably due to the alcohol consumed backstage by some of the cast. I had the joy of another of Richard Cates' wonderful numbers when I gazed into a mirror. And all this whilst rehearsing Ladies' Night in London during the early part of the day. Talking about multitasking, drag queen stripper by day and Sheriff of Nottingham by night. And then 2006 marked the very last New Palm panto at the Civic Theatre in Chelmsford. For whatever reason, John and Daphne decided to release their tenure on the panto and go out in a blaze of glory, which I suppose is what we did. New Palm pantos were unique, true company fun, with no stars, just traditional panto. But as we took our final bows, I couldn't help but wonder what 2007 had in store for me, as far as the main panto run was concerned.
Our 37 pantos have all been so much fun, and so we bid a fond farewell to each and everyone.
I couldn't help but wonder what 2007 had in store for me, as far as the main panto run was concerned. But before that, there was one more adult panto at the Pavilion Theatre in Brighton, and this time I was in grotesque prosthetics as the Wicked Witch in Jack and the Beanstalk. The Pavilion Theatre was not known for spaciousness backstage, and manoeuvring a huge black and silver voluminous restoration crinoline with limited visibility was far from easy. But it was fun to play a different type of villain and sing You're Nothing Without Me from City of Angels, which I hadn't sung since my final showcase at drama school. This was the last of the adult pantos I was to do, as the following year the said taxi driver asked me to write, direct and appear as King in Sleeping Beauty, and after 6 months' labour of love writing a show to be proud of, he threw a paddy over costumes and got rid of me. It hurt at the time, but the saying, never cast one's pearls before swine, remains true, and heaven knows how they would have responded to such disciplined rehearsal and script after the travesty they presented in previous years. And so, what was my main panto going to be that year? It came from the most unexpected source. I think I'd replied to an ad in one of the casting sites, just out of belligerence, but one spring afternoon I was sat in Amsterdam Bar in Brighton when the phone rang and the familiar voice rang out. After 13 years it was dear Mark Andrews. I'd sent him my new address after leaving Birmingham, where I last worked for him in Cannock as comic. So years later he asked me to play Dame. The theatre offered was the Bijou Princess Theatre in Hunstanton, the theatre graced by Princess Diana and her boys, who regularly used to visit from Sandringham. The theatre was not without its technical difficulties, with stage right only being accessible behind a cloth, and the only access to the stage up a rickety staircase stage left, which presented massive logistical offstage traffic. But all that aside, what a time we had. The show was a Sleeping Beauty, and I was cast as Nanny Nora. The backcloths were exquisite, the script was superb, and the direction under Michael Garland exemplary. Coupled with that, I shared a cottage next door to the theatre with the wonderful Johnny Riley as comic. If I had to narrow everything down, I would say those Hunstanton years were the happiest ever, and that is a very hard thing to say. But it was such a magical time, with beautiful heartwarming shows and a team who just worked together so well. It didn't matter that I couldn't get home for 6 weeks. My husband Michael drove me there and back with the costumes and visited during the run, and Christmases were spent with the cast, enjoying the Christmas Day swim on the beach and lunch in our Bijou cottage. As Dennis Quilly said, happiness indeed. Mark Andrews offered me his new show as Dame, Beauty and the Beast, the following year, but I opted for a nearer-to-home run with Paul Holman's company in 2008, in the first of many Snow Whites, and starring Kim Hartman from A Lower Low. A nice production in the hands of director Peter Dayson and a fine comic in Jez Edwards. Nothing groundbreaking, just a good traditional panto with 12 Days of Christmas, Ghost Gag and numerous other set routines. Handy for me to be able to commute from Brighton, but it didn't make for a close-knit cast as everyone was travelling from various places, which left little time for socialising. Another whirlwind get-out as I started rehearsals for Stop Messing About at Kingston the day after in January. And then, in 2009, back to dear old Hunstanton. But what a joy to return with some of the old team from Sleeping Beauty. Dear Michael Garland, Dudley Rogers and Johnny Riley, and I was happily ensconced back in our Minna cottage for another great season. Beautifully written, dressed and designed. Yes, we had a few hazards with snow, power cuts, and a school being stuck in traffic, resulting in the fastest show ever on record in order to finish on time. But what a joy. It was with a heavy heart that we learnt that Hunstanton was closing for whatever reason the following year. So this was our last time there in the foreseeable future. We certainly went out in style on the last night, with a huge party at our cottage. The Hunstanton years will always remain special in my heart, and probably the last time I ever shed a tear on a last night. I'm going to class the following season as Panto number 19, even though it was technically a return to the same production of Mark Andrews' magnificent Beauty and the Beast, transferred to the new all-singing, all-dancing Middleton Arena outside Manchester. I've only ever repeated an exact production once before with Chelmsford's Aladdin in 2002 and 2006, but as all the subjects come round in quick succession, a season is a season. The show looked even better on the bigger stage in a multi-purpose venue, and it was wonderful to be reunited again with Dudley, Michael and Johnny. But alas, the conditions we were staying in digs across the road at the Asherton Arms left a lot to be desired. Freezing cold rooms we'd paid the earth for above a noisy pub that had late night discos was not a good way to spend the season, and we were relieved it was a shorter run. I remember spending the last night in Manchester after the final show in order to get the 4 AM train on New Year's Eve from Manchester to Euston. We were that desperate to depart from the less than salubrious digs. But it ended a very happy 3 years under Mark Andrews' management, and it was a great shame that he was undercut at his other venues, when his production values were extremely high, and the love and care that went into them was exemplary. I shall always be grateful for all 5 seasons he gave me. But ironically, Mark popped his head round the door the following year when I was appearing in Pantomime 20 at Bolton Albert Halls for Dougie Chapman. Although the production wasn't particularly high on set and costume values, it boasted a stellar cast of old pros, including Stu Francis and the Patton brothers, who were all a joy to work with, very generous performers, and it was humbling to work with such icons, passing their knowledge down after all these years, and doing what they did so well with the classic routines. A masterclass indeed. It was a long season until mid-January, and a lot of performances. The Albert Halls was not the easiest place to work with 3 flights of stone stairs up to the dressing rooms and a huge communal room for chorus in which I had a screened off area for my costumes. But one takes the rough with the smooth. Everyone goes through a panto season they would rather forget, and I guess I have been no exception. But one doesn't expect the conditions and situations in which it arises. But in 2012 I was booked to do Snow White at an extremely bizarre venue in Northampton. The Deco Theatre was owned in those days by the Jesus Army. It was actually a very pleasant Art Deco cinema theatre that was in a reasonable state of preservation. The problem was, because the venue was used as a drop-in centre as well, we couldn't rehearse there, so we were consigned to a freezing cold scout hut on the outskirts, and it really was. Add to this a director on something or other who allowed the show to be 3 hours long in the rehearsal room, cast illness due to the awful conditions, and a comic who couldn't be asked to get his gags sorted, and it didn't make for a happy season. Luckily it finished before New Year's Eve. My resounding memory was a 3-hour dress rehearsal before cast and crew ran round like headless chickens cutting things, so the show could come in at 2.5 hours with interval. Not a pleasant experience. The following year, 2013, I contacted Extravaganza, run by 2 regal old queens, David and Richard, who produced at Middlesbrough and Stockport, and was duly rewarded with Sleeping Beauty at Middlesbrough, sharing the stage with Kim Hartman again, and Vicky Michelle from 'Allo 'Allo. It was a lovely return to the theatre, where I'd done my second ever panto in 1993. It was a beautifully dressed show, very traditional with exquisite sets and costumes, and by and large a lovely one to play and fairly easy, as being put to sleep at the end of Act 1, I didn't have a busy Act 2, apart from a sleepwalking scene and number, the wake-up and the finale. I worked for Extravaganza again the following year. But before that, summer 2014 saw me doing 2 pantos on tour for Haven Holidays. The whole project was bizarre to say the least, as 4 companies learnt the shows in boot camp circumstances in Chalfont St Giles, and then hit the road for 6 weeks. I was ensconced on the Wales tour, which meant many hours of travel lodge accommodation, logistical nightmares, and 4 kids straight out of drama school, unprepared for the rigours of touring. The pantos were specially adapted versions of Aladdin and Cinderella, and were actually pretty stylish, well designed and written, hour-long versions that performed in rotation. In Aladdin, I played Dame Donna Kebab in this new version, and in Cinder's stepmother Cruella. Actually great fun to play, but hellish in the heat and sweatshops of holiday camp ballrooms. It reminded me very much of the 8 weeks I'd spent as a bluecoat at Prestatyn, which became one of our regular venues on this tour. It will take a whole blog in itself to describe the shenanigans of these tours, but needless to say, it was not one I was anxious to repeat, and I think the sheer physicality of it all would be beyond me these days. And then later in that year, 2014, I was to play my one and only ugly sister in my own right in Cinderella at Stockport for Extravaganza. I had a wonderful fellow sister in Paul Arden Griffiths from Phantom of the Opera to play opposite and share a dressing room with, and we got on famously. The sets and costumes were every bit as magnificent as the previous year's Sleeping Beauty. Stockport Plaza was a beautifully restored Art Deco theatre to play, complete with a theatre organ, played before most performances, so we weren't subjected to endless naff Christmas songs. Ted Robbins was Baron Hardup, and a lovely gentleman he was. Chrissy Rock was a rather chaotic stepmother, whom one never knew from one night to another just how she was going to play a scene. But all in all, it was a fairly satisfying experience, and finished before New Year's Eve, which is always a bonus. On actual Christmas Day that year, I had a phone call from dear Martin Dodd at UK Productions, asking for my availability for the following year. I'd been writing to them and had inquiries, but had always been booked and busy. But how lovely to have something in the pipeline 12 months hence. And so, 2015 saw me at the beautiful Palace Theatre Mansfield, that I'd only played once before on the split week of Real Monty in 2002. And the show this time, yet another Aladdin, as Widow Twankey. Aladdin was certainly becoming part of my stock repertoire, but with such a strong plot and characters, I wasn't complaining. We had digs across the road with lovely Judith Ward, and I officially celebrated 20 years as Dame during that run. UK production pantos are truly beautiful in their design and scripts. Not surprising, as our script was written by Andrew Ryan, resident Dame Birmingham Hippodrome. Everything you could have wanted in this show. 3 magicians in the cast, a proper slosh scene, all the elements, who could ask for more? Ideally wish I'd done more with UK productions. And then an unexpected turn of events the following year. My dear friend Stuart Morrison asked me to go up to, of all places, the Isle of Lewis, to take over as Mother Moppy in Snow White at the Anne Lanterre Theatre right on the quayside in Stornoway. Stuart used to live on the island and had explored the possibilities of this little gem of a venue at the hub of the community, and as a result had been presenting annual pantos there since 2011. They're always enthusiastically welcomed by the community, involving local kids in the ensemble, and because of their popularity and camaraderie, we had more chaperones backstage than cast members. But it's a glorious working holiday, with good old pros who just get on with the task and do it. No fits, no fights, no feuds and no egos. Just good fun bringing pleasure to so many people in the Eastern Isles. What more could one ask? Snow White had come from the Deco Theatre in Northampton, where Stuart had been producing, and since my disastrous Snow White in 2012, Stuart had certainly put the theatre on the map with his company. It was to be the start of 6 very happy journeys to the island, and I sincerely hope as the years go by, there's many more to come. Added to that, a tour of the island, care of ferry captain Byron McGuinness, who always assists backstage on the shows, gives us a chance to see some of the most beautiful and remotest scenery one could hope to experience. All in all, a total joy every time one visit. And then, 2017 and 2018 saw me doing not 1, but 2 Aladdins within a matter of weeks. I've been writing to Horsham Arts Centre for a number of years to secure a localish venue from which I could commute home and possibly spend some festive time with my husband Michael. But Nick Mowat at Horsham had very kindly suggested myself to Michael Goebel, who is directing Aladdin at the Playhouse in Weston-super-Mare, and was in need of, yes, dear old Widow Twankey. I didn't even have to audition. Word of mouth and a few character references from people I'd worked with in the dim and distant past secured me the role. The producers, Parkwood Leisure, were not entirely welcoming, and I sensed a definite coldness from them at the photo call, and in subsequent years when they made me audition for them again. Hey-ho, I can't waste my time analysing why.
What's that?
You want 2 tickets to the Aladdin panto at the Playhouse? Yeah, I'll sort it, Ma. I'm sure they'll cotton on who's in it.
Now, of course they will. Me, Widow Twanky, that's who. So don't delay. Book today and have a fun-filled family time in Old Peking. We look forward to seeing you. Bye for now.
Aladdin at the Playhouse was another beautifully dressed production in sets and costumes, and a superb script from Nick Mowat, including a brilliant laundry bag routine and the most brilliant use of the number Dirty Laundry from Witches of Eastwick as a big ensemble number. In the cast was John Altman, and we originally had the duet Baby It's Cold Outside, but unfortunately, even though we had a live pit band, the MD decided to have everything on track, affording no flexibility whatsoever in accompanying a technically difficult number. So, sadly, it was curtailed on the technical rehearsal. The MD didn't exactly support us on this one. Rather silly, as one would have thought a live pit band would have played at least some of it live. There was also a choreographer who totally ignored my email regarding what I'd be wearing in certain routines. Rather stupid in my opinion. And the first day of rehearsals saw me disconsolate in the Wetherspoons immediately after.
It is hard when you come to the end of a run, because you've gone through the rehearsal process. You've had problems maybe with rehearsals. You've got over them. You've had the opening nights. You then got into a routine of doing the show. And you just build up that rapport with your fellow actors, and you're together so little time, really, 5 weeks, and then you've got to say goodbye. And it's also people you're staying with, people in digs. It's a very weird experience. You are thrown into a crazy world for 5 weeks, and you have to forge friendships. Get to know people's timing and idiosyncrasies, and then before you know where you are, it's over. And of course you go through days when you think, oh, we've got to go through all this again, and 3 show days, 2 show days. But we're human beings, as Angela Lansbury said. You fall back on your technique. Anyone that's in this business will know what we mean by technique. It will carry you through. So, I wouldn't be human if I didn't sit in front of this mirror every day and think, oh God, here we go again. But as soon as the transformation starts and you get yourself ready, you are off. That is our profession. That is what we do.
But however fraught that Aladdin was, it was relieved by another Aladdin less than a week later up in Stornoway for dear Stuart Morrison and the gang. Some may think 2 different Aladdin scripts in quick succession might have been confusing, but my rep training had done me well, and the brain adapted to both. The Stornoway Aladdin was rehearsed in less than 3 days, and was as fun as the year before at Stornoway, notching up my Aladdin's total to 7, and making Aladdin my most performed panto. The following year was the one and only panto in my hometown of Brighton, apart from the adult pantos in the early 2000s. In 2018, a local company in its embryonic stages had made the bold step to bring a traditional panto back to Brighton, as there wasn't one at the Theatre Royal, following an appalling Cinderella with 2 TV personality cleaners. The company had adapted the Metropole Hotel in Brighton, put in raked seating and a steel deck stage into one of the banqueting suites, and attempted to rectify this omission in Brighton's cultural history. I auditioned for the producers and was subsequently offered my 3rd stint on Jack and the Beanstalk as Dame Dolly Trott.
Oh, there you are! Lovely to see you, boys and girls, mums and dads. Well, of course, I am Dame Dolly Trott, Jack's mother, and we hope you're all coming to see us in Jack and the Beanstalk at the Hilton Brighton Metropole, the 20th to the 29th of December. Get your tickets at www.jackinbrighton.com. See you soon. Bye!
The premise was promising, the script promising too, and along with supplying my own costumes, I figured out it would be a worthwhile project. And ironically, the choreographer turned out to be the lady I'd first worked with as my daughter in Mother Goose in 1999. How she'd changed. We had a guest on-stage screen appearance by Christopher Biggins as the King, and the rest of the cast and dancers were pleasant enough. Unfortunately, the back projection and the minimal sets looked very Spartan. The blow-up beanstalk noisy and disappointing, and the comic turned out to be an upstaging little upstart, ruining my number with the dancers one night by his own arrogance and immaturity. And yet he was brought back the following year to appear in Peter Pan.
This is David Rumelle, who plays our wonderful Dame Trot.
Oh, good afternoon, lovely to see you. It's all very sad, it's the penultimate show.
I know, I'm really sad.
What are we going to do now?
I know, I actually am really
Relax, I suppose.
Yeah. Ready, quick fire questions.
Yes, dear.
Pink or orange?
Pink?
Dame or villain?
Dame.
But questionably, sometimes a dame is the villain.
But yeah, that's true. I've done Sister twice, once by accident, once a couple of years ago. It's great fun. I mean, I love doing villain as well. I've done more shows in Nottingham and things like that. Yeah, love both.
Cow or giant?
Cow.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Eyelashes or lipstick?
Eyelashes.
What's your favourite costume in the show?
Sweet corn.
Would you like to show us your costume?
Yes, well, let me give you the grand tour. So this is the opener, and then we go into Red and White for Money, Money, Money. That was my agent's old costume, so that's what it is. Then we go into Sweet Corn, which is the 30-year-old jobby.
Brilliant.
Then into this one that was made for my Mother Goose in 1999 with our choreographer Jodie.
Yeah.
Then we go into the night dress, and then top of that too, we're into this pink little jobby that was made for Snow White in 2008.
Wow.
Then into Harlequin. Then into that one. Then into that one, Air Hostess.
Yeah.
And then walk down.
And then walk down is this beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing. So David's brought all his own costumes. Incredible. Thank you for your time.
All in all, not particularly memorable, apart from a rather humorous video spot with myself as Dame getting up the beanstalk by means of the Brighton i360. Now that was one for the archives, definitely. A similar technique was to be used in Panto number 31, and my third visit to Stornoway, care of Stuart, in Robin Hood. My visits to Stornoway were by pure chance, as the first, and this, my third, were direct transfers of shows from either from the Deco Theatre in Northampton that Stuart had presented, or the Cresset Theatre in Peterborough. I was usually a replacement for the dames in those shows who were unavailable for one reason or another. But Stornoway never lost its appeal for me, and Robin Hood, although not a well-known title, gave me the third stab at this often neglected subject and a chance to work again with superb comic Nick Cochrane. Having played essentially a hotel in 2018, the following year I felt as though I was gradually sliding down the theatre scale at the Magnet Leisure Centre in Snow White. DK Productions were pleasant enough to work for, but the confines of this chlorine-fragrant, soon-to-be-demolished council monstrosity was hardly conducive, and I did begin to think my panto days were over. I mean, how low could one actually plummet in the grand scheme of things? The set was merely a video screen with some incongruous props, and the costumes decidedly Temu crossed with Smithies, for those in the know. Ironic, as my walk-down costume was probably the heaviest I've ever supplied, and sumptuous beyond measure. I think my overriding memory of that experience was Christmas Day in the Travel Lodge, with my Bucks Fizz, smoked salmon and cream cheese floating in the bathtub to keep cool, and my tights and tits drying on the radiator. I mean, if that isn't dedication to the art of panto, what is? Luckily my spirits were revived by a fourth trip to Stornoway, in a from-scratch production of Sleeping Beauty at Anne Lanterre, and this time with Coronation Street's Steve Arnold and my dear mate Linda Clark from Real Monty and Repertory Days at Westcliff and Chelmsford. And this sadly was to be the last panto for nearly 2 years, as the pandemic affected the profession very badly, putting performers and companies out of work and closing theatres, a blow from which many never recovered. It never ceased to amaze me how we could create a new production from scratch in a matter of days. Any panto is hard pushed with rehearsal time, with an average of around 9 days rehearsal, including technical and dress. But the Stornoway pantos from scratch were an average of 4 days, if we were lucky. Sleeping Beauty and the Beast had all the favourite elements, and for me, an achieved ambition of recreating the Terry Scott strip in a matter of days. I've covered this in a separate account, which can be found on my YouTube channel. As usual, our romantic scenic tours of the beautiful island of Lewis, care of our stalwart crew member dear Byron McGuinness, only cemented what a beautiful experience this always was. And then later that year, the pandemic struck us, and virtually every panto in the country. Stuart had offered me a production of Jack and the Beanstalk at the Crescent Theatre in Peterborough, but uncertainty about the pandemic and doubt about whether we could actually proceed forced me to decline, and to this day it is a big regret that I have never managed to do a full season at this venue with such a wonderful team of cast and crew. Likewise, the year of the pandemic, an unexpected contact from Spiller's Panto, with whom I'd worked on the ill-fated Mother Goose at Wakefield in 2001, re-emerged. This was an offer to play Captain Hook at the Alexandra Theatre in Bognor Regis, but this too had to be dismissed amidst uncertainty and financial considerations. But Spillers proved to be my bread and butter for the following 2 years at both Bognor and Epsom Playhouse. The first was another Jack and the Beanstalk, notching up my outings with this subject to 5, including an adult version. This was a pleasant enough show. We had an excellent up-and-coming comic in Joey Wilby, a rather chaotic slosh scene, and my one and only chance to fly. I was a bit dubious about this, as I also had a jetpack strapped to me which shot out a pyrotechnic flare, which I feared might be somewhat risky in my polysilk Wonder Woman costume. But I got away with it safely and found the whole experience rather exhilarating. And staying with my brother-in-law and his partner in Angmering meant I wasn't too far from home.
Change knickers at this point.
Change knickers at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Switching round. Here we go.
This is how we do a quick change.
Sneak peek. How many costume changes do you have in the show?
There is, there's 11 costumes. There used to be 12, and then we couldn't manage one because it was. It was, yes, indeed, but I think we're down to 12 now. Lovely, thank you.
12 amazing costumes, and Queenie helps out.
And there she is.
There she is. I think that might be my favourite, the bow. Very Mrs. Slocum.
Actually, it's Dame Edna. It's made a Dame Edna impression in Aladdin in Western Superman.
Amazing. Right, I'll come and catch up with you later. So we've had the 5-minute call. Are you ready?
Yeah, well, just about. It's all a bit of a rush. We've got to get the flying harness on.
Oh my goodness.
Underneath, then put the knickers on, and then put the slosh costume on. So it's all sort of a bit of a rush and a knock-on effect. But we've got there.
We've got there. David this morning was on radio.
Yes.
Did you enjoy it? Went well?
Yes, I recorded it on Thursday actually, on the day off. Yeah, it was fine.
Amazing. Day off. Days off. Day off.
This is where the money goes, because these each are about, what I have made are about £300 each.
So, I mean, all the makeup, like, my goodness.
He puts balloons in his hats.
Put balloons in your hats?
Yes, in the mock caps to make them rise. Because
Oh
I need
He
something.
tried self-raising flower and it didn't.
I need something that isn't too heavy.
Thank you.
So there's a balloon in this one. I need to restuff it actually because it's getting a bit limp. We knew this for this year. That material came from Holland 20 odd years ago.
Oh my gosh.
That one was made for Spillers in Wakefield, Mother Goose.
Oh, really?
2001. That was off the Goldilocks in 2000. That was made for Snow White at Red Hill originally, and the walk down is new this year as well.
And the walk down is I think my favourite because it's just so sparkly and I love it.
It's strange that over the years, both Jack and the Beanstalk and Dick Whittington seemed to follow in quick succession, hot on the heels of each other. So the following year, it was a joy to return to playing Sarah the Cook in Dick at Epsom Playhouse for Spillers. Again, a pleasant little production with some brilliant co-performers, Charlotte Ann Steen, who is subsequently wowing them as Elphaba in Wicked, and lovely Craig Ranford and Jamie Bannerman as Captain and Mate.
Okay, well it's David Rumelle, otherwise known as Dame Sarah Semolina Suet, Sarah the Cook. And I shall be playing the traditional Dame in Dick Whittington this year at the Playhouse. It'll be my 27th year of playing Dame. I've done a few more pantos than that, but this is actually the 27th year. And I shall be bringing the usual mixture of comedy, slapstick, lots and lots of costumes, change on every entrance. And yes, I mean, I've sort of made it a career really over the last 27 years, and to play it traditionally, to play it warm, colourful, and lots of fun for the kids. So we're going to have a wonderful time.
The fly in the ointment was King Rat, who didn't know his lines, his entrances, stank out the dressing room with vile-smelling soup, and then proceeded to tell me that the smell of my nail varnish was poison to his lungs. If only it had been, I'd have left an unscrewed bottle on the dressing table. And then on to my fourth Dick. This came totally out of the blue, as in 2023 I was resigned to be panto-less, due to lack of interest and my detached retina operation. But fate decreed that a self-tape via Spotlight secured me another Sarah the Cook at the prestigious Salisbury Playhouse, one of the last remaining producing reps in the country. The weeks leading up to rehearsal saw me trying to recover from sciatica that had struck, but more or less recovered. So I happily ensconced myself in Salisbury for 10 weeks, wondering how we were going to fill these 3 weeks of rehearsal. And sadly, the fly in the ointment here was another opinionated choreographer who literally took over the production, to the extent that we couldn't make a move or put a foot right without her scathing remarks. Totally oblivious to the logistics of fast patter songs, voluminous walk-down costumes, and showing scant regard for our feelings. This was not a happy rehearsal period for myself, and I failed to see how and why this woman had been allowed to upstage the artistic director, Gareth Machin. Added to which she was heavily pregnant, so even the kids in the show were scared of her.
I like the ensemble quality of it. Everyone has their moment to give of their best and to shine. And when it's someone else's turn, you stand back and give them their moment. So it's very much a well-balanced show, very well integrated with all the cast, and I love the music as well. There's a lot of wonderful contemporary music and so spot on. So it's very, very precise.
Nevertheless, once the show opened, I enjoyed a fun run in a beautiful city and lovely digs. It was just a shame that creative process was marred, and this version certainly wasn't Dick Whittington as I've come to know and love it.
Hello, well I'm David Rumelle. I'm playing Sarah the Cook, the archetypal Dame in Dick Whittington. And I think when you play Dame, you have to live it and breathe it for the length of the run. I mean, you can't think about anything else during the run of a pantomime. You have to plan your entire day around it. You have to think when you're going to do makeup, when you're going to eat. You have to keep yourself physically fit. You have to protect the voice. You have to, you live it. It's as simple as that.
But fate was once again on my side, as in 2024 an ad on Spotlight revealed that dear Stuart Morrison was presenting Wizard of Oz at a theatre somewhere in Kent, and more out of playful resilience, I suppose, I put myself forward for it. Of all roles, Glinda and Aunt Em. It really was just a bit of playful fun, as Wizard of Oz isn't strictly a panto and Glinda wasn't strictly a dame. But Stuart duly offered me the role, and the venue turned out to be yet another I had played years before on the Paddington tour, the Lees Cliff Hall in Folkestone. Now, I had vivid memories of playing a chaotic matinee there in 1998, with only one entrance stage left and no crossover at the back. But 26 years later, the venue has been radically improved. Of course, even though Wizard was very much a pantomime-style presentation, it wouldn't have worked to have played Glinda and Aunt Em as traditional dame. And so, as a tribute to my dear guiding star, Patrick Fife, I played the role as, of course, Dame Hilda Brackett, which gave me the chance to maintain the comedy and the pathos without being too over the top, which would have spoilt the charming and sincere story.
Welcome to Oz, my dears, the wonderful land of Oz, the yellow brick road which leads to magic and adventure. Oh, Folkestone is lovely in the Lees, you see. It's a lovely walk along the seafront. And, of course, it's where half a sixpence was set, full of wonderful values, full of family themes that has been passed down from generation to generation. So do come along and join us here.
See you at the wonderful Wizard of Oz!
Book your tickets now.
With a superb cast, well-chosen numbers, and an incredible set combining projection and traditional set pieces, this really was a happy, tight-knit show to be a part of, and one that I wouldn't have thought about doing a few years previously. Cinderella isn't a show I've done often, only as company manager and covering for George Loken as Sister at Eastbourne, and as Ugly Sister in my own right in 2014 at Stockport. So another pleasant surprise beckoned in the early form of Panto number 38 early in 2025, and a much welcome return to Stornoway to play probably the oldest Dandini on record in Stuart's production that had transferred from Peterborough. Another chance to explore this beautiful island whilst rehearsing in a matter of days. But that's the joy of working for a company where everyone knows each other, with the same family feel as dear old New Palm all those years ago. This production certainly whetted my appetite for this panto subject, and it's easy to see why it is up there with the most popular titles. Playing opposite Sarah Galbraith as a traditional principal boy as Prince Charming works superbly, and another joyous run and social time ensued for us all. And then back to a traditional panto last year, with Peter Pan as myself as Mrs. Smee. Again, Peter Pan is not instantly recognised as a panto, as it is a charming children's story. But with a chance to play a subject I'd nearly tackled 4 years ago, I wasn't going to complain, and I feel I've developed a soft spot for the Lees Cliff Hall in Folkestone, with its stunning sea views and beautiful architecture. The show really captured the spirit of pantomime, and reviews were incredibly positive. A great combination of traditional routines, musical theatre numbers, and a well-known plot proved another delightful new title for me to play. And that should have actually left me with 39 seasons worth of panto. Due to a last-minute recast in Stuart's Beauty and the Beast at Peterborough, I have been incredibly lucky to have been a part of a truly magical production. And so here I am, celebrating 40 pantomimes in 33 years at the Anne Lanter Theatre in Stornoway in Beauty and the Beast. And I can't think of a more wonderful way to celebrate that achievement. So it's been a roller coaster, but here we are, and it's been great. Here's the next 40 pantos. So, after 25 years, I finally got to play in the show I wrote the basis of for New Palm in 2005. The show has grown incredibly over that time, mainly due to the fine casts that have each added their own gags and spin on the original conception. I feel now the show has the perfect balance of pathos, comedy, slapstick, romance, and fine musical content. In short, I've been so proud to have been a part of it, and I can't think of a better way to round off 40 pantomimes in 34 years. And ironically, returning to my first love of playing a character role, that of Beauty's father, the type of role I can see myself playing should I ever get too decrepit to play Dame. I sincerely hope there are more shows to come as the years go on. But for now, thank you to everyone I've worked with and for over the years. Yes, there've been some downfalls and shows that didn't quite reach expectations for me, but one has to take the rough with the smooth. The cast in Stornoway have presented me with a beautiful traditional Scottish cup of friendship during the run of Beauty, which I will forever treasure, as to receive such an accolade from one's fellow performers really is a great honour. So, here's the next chapter in this crazy world of Panto. There really is no other experience like it. Cheers, guys.
I may be prim and proper, a little bit refined. I may be domineering, but no one seems to mind. I work my little socks off and my fingers to the bone, so everything is shipshape in our happy little home. So let's hear you cheer for Dolly, housekeeper and cook extraordinaire. I polish and I clean, the best you've ever seen. I dust and hoover every niche and still have time to make a quiche. A house is a home with Dolly. I make it just as tidy as can be. I'm a wizard with the mops and brooms. I even outdo changing rooms. So if your home's untidy, come to me. Now I rise at 8 each morning, and breakfast I prepare, then clean my nooks and crannies, well that dust gets everywhere. For lunch a cold collation, some salad and some tongue, and maybe a roly-poly, well it keeps an old girl young. So let's hear you cheer for Dolly. I put an end to every rainy day. My garden is well kept, my passages are swept, my cups and saucers always gleam, my dishes have the same regime, my outlook is bright and jolly. Never be upset or wear a frown. Home improvements I will always try, because my forte's DIY. So give a cheer, 'cause Dolly's back in town. So give a cheer, Dame Dolly's back in town. There we go.
Oh, at the washing here comes Widow Twanky, soap and starch and hanky-panky. Service washes with a courteous grin, knickers always on a moderate spin. Oh, at the washing for that special service, two-piece suit or evening gown, overcoat or underwear, boil, wash or easy care. Just haul at the washing, here comes Widow Twanky. Widow Twanky's in town. If your shirts need ironing or your blouses need repair, if your socks need darning or your duvet needs an air, tumble dry or service wash, a mangle or a scrub. Oh, me knees, girls, there'll be gleaming once-they've had that cycle in my tub. So haul out the washing, here comes Widow Twanky. Stop those bloomers feeling manky. If your clothes seem dull and tired as well, I'm the girl to give your boxes a swell. Oh, haul out the washing for that special treatment, Chinese laundry of renown. Ironed and steamed as neat as can be, just bring those combinations to me. And haul out the washing, here comes Widow Twanky. Hasn't it been a shocking day for drying? Widow Twanky's in town. Whoa! There we go. See you later, my darlings. Take care now, loves.